The story begins in the hospital with the boy lying in bed as the leaves wilt and a petal falls on his face. The boy wakes up startled and immediately sits up. He's panting and asks himself where he is. At this moment, you already know that he's someone who's been reincarnated. He goes to pull off the sheet to check if his legs are okay. But no, the guy reincarnated without legs, they're just stumps now. Angry, he asks what time it is when suddenly someone calls out for their brother. She cries emotionally, saying that he's finally awake and runs to give him a hug. She squeals to him that she will find the person who hit him with a car and flood, and for sure, his legs would be healed. The protagonist realizes that he's truly gone back 1 year in time. To the car accident where man he spun like a beyblade and soared through the sky. That's when his life as a rising young billionaire ended. A girl ran to rescue Mr. Shen, but after that, he became a wheelchair user. Things only started to go wrong from that moment on. Someone enters the room and calls for Shen Qing. The protagonist, with a desolate look, calls for Tian Kai. Tian Kai says that his big brother brought some things for him to eat and recover. This was the person he trusted most in the world. His brother, someone he was very close to, named Xiao Tian Kai. But this guy took advantage of the moment when he was weak to take over the international group he had created. He also used the protagonist's poor state of health to force his sister to marry him. Fortunately, this guy is a family friend, not a blood relative. He told the protagonist's sister that if she married him, her brother's future would be guaranteed and he would always pay for the hospital bills. Desperate, the protagonist tells him to let her go. But the poor guy was lying on the floor like a slug. Tian Kai asks what he's going to do about it. He kisses his sister, saying he doesn't understand why dogs keep barking. The poor girl could only cry, completely helpless. That bastard took everything he had. Not long after, a game called Divine Path appeared. It had a 100% realism feature, and soon enough, the in-game currency became valuable in the real world. But something no one expected happened. Guess what, guys? The game's attributes started affecting reality. That should have been the perfect chance for Shen Qing to get his revenge. But he was dirt poor at the beginning. He couldn't play the game as soon as it launched and also didn't have the resources to level up fast enough. He was constantly crushed and killed, and he had no chance to compete with that guy. And that bastard Tian Kai used the money he stole from his company to buy the best resources and attributes. He created a guild that turned him into an unmatched powerhouse. But Shen Qing knew that all of this belonged to him. At the protagonist's house, Tian Kai asks if the boy called him there to laugh at him. Surrounded by explosives, he says it's funny that he thinks something like this will kill him. But Shen Qing says that, at the very least, they'll find out together. He presses the detonator and says he'll see him in the next life. With that, the entire house explodes. The boy was determined. His legs were gone, and so were his arms. But Tian Kai asks why he even tried something like that. Shen Qing is shocked to see the guy standing there, completely unharmed, in front of him. Tian Kai says that with Divine Path attributes, it's impossible for even a hair on his body to be hurt by something like this. He stomps on the boy's head and says that before he dies, he'll learn something. He was behind the death of his parents and also the accident that caused him to lose his legs. And the most ironic part is that he's going to have a child with his sister, and the family's last bloodline will carry his surname. Shen Qing screams in desperation, but under the guy's foot, there's nothing he can do. Even with his head stomped, he swore to himself that he would never forgive this. Back in the present, he has no idea why he was reincarnated. But he turns to his sister and tells her not to cry, that things will work out. He swears that in this life, he will protect her and everything their family work for. And of course, he will get revenge on that bastard Tian Kai. The problem is that he reincarnated after the accident, so he already doesn't have his legs. His chance clearly lies in the launch of Divine Path. It will take at least a month for people to discover that the game's attributes affect reality. And this is the window of time he has to turn things around. He needs to take advantage while his money hasn't been frozen yet. His sister asks why he's making faces if his leg hurts. She stands up saying she's going to call a doctor, but he says there's something more urgent than that. Confused, she asks what it is. He asked for her help, saying that he needs a gaming station. One for the new game that's about to launch, known as Divine Path. She still doesn't quite understand why he's asking for that. Suddenly, Tian Kai enters the room, asking since when his big brother has been so into games. He warns that it's dangerous for him to get addicted to games, especially because there's a company to take care of. Shen Qing quickly realizes that this bastard is trying to provoke him. However, he simply replies that now that he's crippled, there's nothing he can do but play games. Tian Kai smirks at him. He then says that this game, Divine Path, is about to launch, but it's extremely expensive. If he's not mistaken, at launch there will only be 100 units, and the price will be more than 300 million. Shen Qing responds that the company's money is his. Even if it costs 30 billion, he would buy one. His sister tells him not to react that way, while Tian Kai says that's fine. Since he wants it so badly, they'll buy one for him. Obviously, Tian Kai is happy with this news. The more time the boy wastes on the game, the easier it will be for him to take over the company. He then tells him not to worry. Since he wants to venture into this world, he'll buy one for him and make sure he enjoys it. He needn't worry about the company because he would take care of it. Suddenly, he pulls the sister to his side and says that Tom will be spending more time with him now. Meanwhile, Shen Qing swears he won't let that filthy bastard lay a hand on his sister. Not understanding, Time Case says that's fine. He then leaves the room and shuts the door. Outside, he looks back in anger, wondering why that useless assassin couldn't kill this bastard. Next time, he'll bring a tank to make sure he explodes for good. Inside the room, Shen King tells his sister to transfer all the company's money into in-game currency. Additionally, she's to sell all the company's shares and transfer that money too. She's a bit confused and asks if he's sick or what's going on. He tells her he's not and says not to worry. He has a plan to change her future. 3 hours later, he's already paid an extra $200 million in shipping fees, and the setup is in his room. This boy is quick, indeed. The account is already created, and he says, "Here I go." With that, the system appears, and at least in the game, our boy has legs. If there's one thing he truly liked, it was the feeling of walking freely. The system asks for a character name, and he enters Ko Hai Wan. A bunch of characters appears in front of him, and the system asks him to choose a class. Up to this point, everything is exactly as it was in his past life. He decides to pick the same class he's most familiar with. The boy chooses the Ranger class. Man, what a miracle he's not an assassin, right? I was already expecting the cliché glitch. The system congratulates his choice, and now it's time to move on to the next step. As he's a VIP user, and at the game's beginning, he'll receive an Elven bloodline. Since the Ranger class matches elves, he gets a bonus because of that. As a special user, he also receives a reward book. Man, this kid is totally pay to win. The book grants him a skill that allows him to detect weak points. He gets excited because, just like in his past life, these are all abilities he's already mastered. As one of the first 100 players, he also receives a special chest. Now, this is something he didn't expect, as he wasn't one of the first in his past life. The message says that the chest contains a rare talent, but will cost 50 million gold coins. And according to the conversion here, that's $7 million. What the hell, this chest is crazy expensive. But our boy already sold the company and immediately throws the money into his account. He knows that normal money will lose more and more value as game items gain prominence. Not to mention that talents are hard to acquire, so getting one now would be fantastic. In his past life, he once obtained a talent that increased bleed damage, which helped him win countless battles. Spending the company's money, he manages to put 500 million gold coins into the game. He clicks yes to open the massive chest, which sends a golden beam of light into the sky. What he receives leaves him thrilled. It's a talent that can evolve anything, something he didn't even know existed. A giant elf appears and announces that the talent has been equipped, and with that, he's ready to start his hunt. However, he's impressed because this talent shouldn't be obtainable with just this money. He decides to open the ability to see what it does. Any item he acquires from monsters will always be of 1 rank higher, with a 5% chance of being 2 ranks higher. He also receives an active skill he can use once every 24 hours. It allows him to upgrade an item by 2 levels, or with a 10% chance by 3 levels. Even though the talent only affects his items and not his attributes, he knows it will make him very strong in the game. He raises his arms as a gauntlet appears, and he says that this will change his future. Walking for the city, he knows this is perfect. While everyone else is using bronze items, he'll already have silver gear. Spending all the company's money was definitely going to be worth it. He's eager to get into the game and start killing monsters to get upgraded items. However, he has to be careful with the 24-hour ability. First, he has to find something with the potential to be evolved. With all the preparations done, he clicks on the system and the game's entrance appears. He excitedly says it's time to change his fate. The scene shifts to the starting village, and he's confused by how many rich people are in this game. He thought he'd be one of the first, but there's already a crowd hunting chickens and leveling up. Others see the chickens fleeing and immediately join in to hunt them too. It looks like there's a competition in the starting village for anything. But for our boy, it's idiotic to fight over something that's worthless. He needs to go straight for a goal that's worth it. For example, killing the starting zone boss and getting the first kill reward. The system warns him to be careful when entering a wild zone, but he flicks the system away, saying the only way to level up fast is to kill dangerous things. Before anything, he needs to equip something. But when he opens his inventory, he's disappointed. The boy has a starter bow and cloth armor, and there's no way it's worth upgrading those things. The problem is that he needs to gain an advantage over others as quickly as possible. That's when he remembers that this ability can also evolve his talents. He raises his hands and uses it on himself. He spends the evolution on his elven bloodline. An elf appears with a crown of lightning and suddenly turns golden. The evolution is a success, upgrading it to royal elf bloodline. This increased his speed and accuracy, but the main bonus was a critical hit every 3 strikes. Just seeing his HP bar increase, he knows it was worth it. With these attributes, it wouldn't be hard to start the game solo. Then here's a howl nearby. Looking over, he sees a level 2 forest wolf. Other adventurers, however, are already hunting and shouting that it won't escape. Everyone is eager to level up quickly. Shen King hides behind a tree, observing. These players are smart. They already know that forming groups and hunting stronger creatures is the fastest way. The only problem is that they don't understand just how realistic this game is. That's when the mage seems to notice something behind them and calls out to the group. Wolves always hunt in packs, and they were surrounded. The monsters leap at the group, and as soon as they're attacked, they panic. The pain from being bitten is far more realistic than they imagined. The group realizes it wasn't a good idea to have come so deep into the forest. One of them, with his head being eaten, says he'll see them at respawn. With that, everyone is killed. Shen King seizes the perfect opportunity. While they were being hunted, he would hunt from behind. He fires a precise arrow that pierces the wolf's head. With that, he makes his first kill. He levels up from level 1 to level 2, gaining experience for his elven bloodline. He also earns 5 attribute points and wolf meat. For someone playing solo, items that restore health are perfect. But of course, the wolves notice his presence and turn toward him. Shen Tin glances up and sees that 3 of them are coming. Now that he's tested his damage, he feels confident. He turns and starts running, activating his elven passive, which boosts movement speed by 100%. He sprints away. He runs to the edge of a mountain, leaps from one ledge to another, and leaves the wolves isolated. The combination of the elven bloodline and ranger class is perfect. He looks back and says they don't stand a chance. But then, he's surprised. The wolves don't even try. They just stand still, staring at him. That's when he notices the system alert that he's entered the buffalo zone. Staying the creatures nearby, he realizes the wolves aren't following because this is a high-level area. Terrified, the wolves begin to retreat. While checking the system and noticing that the buffalo are level 5, someone calls him handsome. Turning around, he sees a group asking if he wants to join them. Man, these guys look suspicious. Even though there's a waifu in the group, he doesn't trust her for a second, especially since she calls him handsome again. When Wooden call you handsome, you already know they have bad intentions. She says they're looking for someone to join their group to hunt buffalo and level up faster than everyone else. The McDonald's mage points out, though, that the boy is level 2 and would only slow them down. Shen King is confused about why he's being rejected. They don't even give him a chance to respond. He turns and wishes them good luck, saying he's heading elsewhere. The blue-haired guy asks if he's lost his mind wanting to hunt alone. Our boy simply says he's a lone wolf and prefers to be more efficient. But they insist, warning him that the next area is even more dangerous, and even for the 4 of them, it would be risky. The chubby one asks if he knows about the death penalty. Shen King says he's a new who's never died, so he has no idea about this so-called penalty. The guy explains that first you lose half your gold and your equipment gets damaged. Not to mention, the pain of death is incredibly realistic, but the worst part of all is losing half of the experience you've earned. Shen King doesn't seem very impressed by this information, but thanks them anyway. He waves goodbye to them, saying it was nice to learn from such professionals. The girl says maybe it should help the guy since it's dangerous for him to be alone. But McDonald's mage tells her not to bother. If the idiot wants to die, there's no reason for them to stop him. Some time passes, and he heads into a cave where he finds a skeleton on the ground. This seemed to be the place he was looking for, the area with the strongest boss in the starting zone. Suddenly, a cave wall shakes, and a creature opens its eyes, clearly enormous. Our boy stands face to face with the level 10 giant tink snake. He activates the ability to detect weaknesses. A weak point marker appears on the giant snake, which has 800 HP, while our boy has 1310 HP. At level 2, these should normally only have around 200 HP. However, he gets an extra 1000 HP due to his Royal Elf passive. With this, he's not afraid to face the boss. Bow in hand, the monster locks eyes with him and lunges to bite. As fast as it is, he's just as quick. He dodges to the side and draws his bow. The first arrow hits the mark, but it only deals 29 damage, far less than he expected. In the end, a boss is still a boss. He dodges again and thanks the fact that at least his speed is enough to avoid damage. Although it's a strong monster, it's slow enough that he can chip away at its health. However, as he aims another shot at its neck, the monster blocks it with his tail. Now the monster is guarding the only weak point where he can deal damage. He decides to rely on speed and fires a volley of arrows. The monster keeps defending and he deals 0 damage. Eventually, he finds another opening and lands a shot for 58 damage. It's going to take longer than expected, but he's definitely faster than the monster. Suddenly, he notices something strange. The boss starts inhaling deeply, filling the cave with smoke. The poison begins to drain 10 HP per second. Doing the math, he realizes he doesn't have much time left in this place. Worse, the snake climbs to the top of the cave, making it harder to land shots. But for Shen King, that's not enough. He draws another arrow, saying he's being underestimated. This time, his shot deals 116 damage, straight to the neck. This kid really has the hacks, well, at least in this case, right? The monster falls to the ground, taking bonus damage since every third hit is a critical strike. He taunts the boss, asking how many more hits it can handle. The snake is starting to sweat, realizing this fight won't be so easy. A short while later, the monster is down to 597 HP, and Shen King is confident. Even losing 10 HP per second, he's sure he'll win. His HP continues to drop, reaching 1010. The problem is that the snake is making things even harder. As he stands still, he's forced to dodge multiple tail attacks. Once the monster realized its attacks couldn't be avoided, it started striking more aggressively to prevent him from attacking. He dodges another strike and thinks that, while the snake is smart, it's still underestimating his speed. Another arrow flies straight to the neck, dealing 200 critical damage. Strangely, he notices the damage was even higher on the belly. Even though the neck is the weak point for an instant kill, the belly seems to take more damage. He prepares another shot, saying that if that's the case, the snake will die even faster. But then he notices something strange. The monster seems to be smiling at him. The snake strikes the ground and a crack begins rushing toward him. The terrain becomes unstable and he loses track of the boss's position. Suddenly, he falls through his knees. This time, the poison is draining 20 HP per second, leaving him with only 600 HP. This is clearly a boss designed to be fought with a group of players. Considering the poison damage and climbing difficulty, he won't survive at this rate. He pulls wolf meat from his inventory, saying he'll have to spend more than he planned. The meat restores 20 HP per second for 20 seconds. Although it's not enough, it'll buy him some time to climb to the top. The next 20 seconds will decide whether he wins this or not. He begins a parkour climb, jumping from ledge to ledge, steadily working his way up. Finally, he reaches a position above the boss. He draws an arrow and lands a shot. The snake looks furious, as if it didn't expect him to make it out alive. The arrow hits the boss right in the eye, causing it to thrash and collapse to the ground. Shen King notices the snake trying to escape again, but he takes advantage of its exposed back to land another shot on the weak spot at the nape of its neck. The monster turns, terrified, only to see our boy preparing another elven arrow. The poor boss, trembling with fear, tries to retreat, but Shen King fires shot after shot with the final arrow piercing through its body, dealing 200 damage and bursting out in its mouth. With that, the monster filing drops to 0 HP. The legend is defeated and the poison dissipates. The system announces that his achievement will be broadcast to the entire server and asks if he wants to hide his name. Shen King considers the option but decides he's been hiding for far too long. Then he tells the system to make an announcement. With that, the player Tail Hai Wang is congratulated for being the first to defeat the starter zone boss. The people in the beginner village are confused, wondering how he did that when the game had just launched. Meanwhile, the other groups blame themselves for being so slow. Players with experience from other games can't comprehend how this is possible. Back with the blue-haired group, they're all exhausted. They manage to kill one buffalo and are convinced that must have been a super boss. The chubby guy says he's excited to see what the first fill reward is. Meanwhile, the other two guys are blushing, eager to get strong so they can impress the ladies. They're drooling, hoping to hear a compliment from the beautiful sister. But then, the system pops up for them. It announces that Cao Hai Wang has earned 1,000 reputation points and a silver chest. The two can't believe there's actually someone stronger than them. Because he defeated a boss several levels above him, our boy gets extra experience, jumping straight from level 2 to level 7. He gains 30 attribute points and immediately puts them all into agility. Not having legs really gave this boy the dream of being fast. Well, for a class like his, agility also boosts damage, so it makes sense. With his attributes distributed, it's time to see what the boss dropped. Something unexpected happens. The 10 silvers that the boss was supposed to drop transform into 10 gold coins. Meanwhile, other players kill a buffalo and get a copper coin. One of the items shines brightly in his inventory and he notices it has a golden glow. Maybe the second evolution triggered, but no, it's actually a crystal coin, a rare form of currency long extinct but usable to buy mysterious items from certain NPCs. Shen King had heard of it in his past life but had never seen one. The system collects the rest of the drops and he checks his backpack. He obtained his silver-ranked snake sword. Obviously, for someone who uses a bow, it's useless, but at least it's worth some money. The most useful item is a silver scale armor that grants a 300 HP shield with a 300-second cooldown. He remembers that this armor normally doesn't have special effects. Maybe his passive ability is influencing the item's stats. The problem is that it requires level 10 to use. That's when he remembers that the system gave him a silver reputation chest as part of the achievement. He asks the system to open it, praying it's not another item for a different class. What he receives is the legendary 7-arrow rain skill, a powerful aerial attack that's perfect for him, though once again it can only be used at level 10. He's slightly disappointed but also excited because he'll become much stronger once he hits that level. Just then, someone in the cave calls out, asking for help. When he goes to check, it's a healthy-looking girl asking if he can save her. She hid in the cave to escape the giant snake. Her name is Miss Fu. He knows she's a famous NPC who gives secret quests. He explains that the snake has already been defeated, so she can leave. But she shows that her foot is injured. Putting a hand to her mouth, she asks if he can carry her. You'd think Shen King would be that cold, calculating protagonist, but no. He blushes like a fool. A second later, he's already carrying her outside. Once outside, she gently touches his face, saying she would have died if not for him. She promises that the next time they meet, she'll take good care of him. But he suddenly questions, "Next time, what do you mean?" and drops her to the ground. She says there's not much she can offer to repay him unless he wants her body. She turns, teasing him, saying he can have it if he wants. But he immediately cuts her off, telling her to stop because that's not what he wants. She laughs, saying it looks like he knows about the test. She pulls out a blade from within the mountains and offers it as a reward. It's a bronze dagger, and he immediately smacks it away. He glares at her, demanding she give him a secret. Confused, she asks what secret he's talking about. He says he wants the quest to save the 14-year-old girl who lives nearby. She can't believe this guy already knows about that quest. but she agrees, saying if that's what he wants, she'll give him the secret class quest. She stands up slowly and calmly. Meanwhile, our boy stands there, arms crossed, asking why she doesn't just hand it over already. Suddenly, she starts performing a dance so forbidden it's outlawed in 27 countries. A step to the left, a sway to the right. Undeniably, this woman is dangerous. Out of nowhere, a magic circle appears beneath him. She warns him that the secret class test is about to begin, and he must pass it to receive the class. He thanks her, but she tells him not to be so eager. This leaves him confused, and he glances at the system window. In that moment, he's shocked. It's his Shadow Hunter mission, marked as Red difficulty. Failure means permanent disqualification. He yells at her to stop, saying he's only level 7 and can't afford to be permanently disqualified. But she gives him a creepy grin, saying, "This is the end for you." His favorability with this NPC drops to 0. At that moment, he realizes the true way to start this quest was by increasing her favorability first. That's why she forced him into the mission before he was at a sufficient level. He wishes him good luck, though she doubts he can pass with the skills he has. As he's sucked into the circle, he swears to her that the moment he's out of this mission, he'll find her and her daughter and kill them both. The magic circle appears in the sky somewhere else, and he's teleported to the ground. It's an endless desert, and he has no idea where he is. The system pops up, announcing that the test has begun. Since this is his only chance, he has to give it his all. Suddenly, he hears something nearby. Looking down, he sees teeth-like structures emerging from the sand. 4 more appear around him, and he realizes he's inside a monster. He jumps up as a giant creature lunges from below to devour him. He activates weakness detection, and the target appears, right in the middle of his mouth. It's a level 5 elite sandworm. Level 5? Easy enough, he thinks, although this thing has 2,000 HP. Even though its level is low, the massive health pool makes it a challenge. He fires an arrow, dealing 130 damage to its open mouth. Fortunately, when a creature is out of the sand, it can't move well. The monster rises high into the air and lunges again. But Shen King sidesteps, and the monster slams into the ground. The impact makes it clear that getting caught would mean being buried forever. Once again, he hears the sand shifting on both sides. The monster seems to be taking longer to emerge, and he realizes he can't keep tracking it underground. He needs to find higher ground to react to its attacks. That's when he sees a pillar in the distance. It's the perfect vantage point. He runs toward it, gradually closing the distance. But just as he is near, something bursts out of the ground again. Anticipating this, he dodges back and fires 2 arrows, dealing 260 and 130 damage. The monster is disgusting, but if he can keep dodging, he'll win. Suddenly, the creature spits sand at him. The problem? He's midair and can't change direction. He shields his eyes with his arm, but still loses 50 HP. His vision is reduced by 50%, and his accuracy drops by 30%. He crashes to the ground, cursing the monster. Looking at his blurry hand, he's still cleaning his eyes when he senses the monster coming from behind. He quickly rolls to the ground just in time to avoid the attack. At least he lands against the pillar and can recover. The monster begins to burrow into the sand again, but now he's confident. The creature has health, but its attack pattern is too obvious. The blindness debuff fades after 10 seconds. With the pillar and his vision restored, he's sure he'll finish this. He draws his bow, ready for another attack. As the ground trembles, he smirks, taunting the monster. The creature lunges again, but this time, Shen King leaps onto the pillar, calling it an idiot. The monster tries to spit sand again. Hitting the pillar, he changes direction, dodges, and fires another arrow, landing a clean 260 damage. The monster pauses, and he wonders aloud if it really only has 2 attack patterns. If that's the case, he'll end it right now. What happens next is peak close-range archer gameplay. He dives into the monster's open mouth, dodging an attack, and lands 3 consecutive arrows. Preparing the final blow, he declares it's over. The last shot deals 130 damage, and finally, the sandworm is defeated. He levels up to level 8, earning 10 silver coins and desert boots, which increase movement speed on sand. However, he calls the rewards trash. How can such a massive, difficult monster drop such garbage? That's when he notices one of the markers on the pillar begins to glow. Looking up, he sees there are 9 identical markers, and only the bottom one is lit. Suddenly, more sandworms appear, and he understands what this means. He'll have to defeat all of these monsters to pass the test. Climbing to the top of the pillar, he thinks at least it's not so bad. This place is perfect for leveling up to level 10. Additionally, he realizes the monsters track prey through vibrations in the ground. He needs a way to create small vibrations to attract the fewest worms possible. The problem is that firing arrows would attract all of them. He has an idea. Opening his inventory, he pulls out some silver coins. Small and light, they're enough to attract just a few creatures. As soon as the coin hits the ground, a sandworm bursts up to attack. He activates his passive, smirking that this is going to be a very luxurious way to win. However, in his position makes it harder to hit the weak spot, reducing his damage to 35 per shot. Still, for a millionaire like him, spending money isn't a problem. Explosions of arrows follow, and 4 hours later, the fight is over. Shen King remains atop the same pillar, now surrounded by the corpses of sandworms. He has finally reached the long-awaited level 10. With 15 points to distribute, he pauses, recalling something that's been bothering him. He hasn't received many items and he wonders if it's because his luck stat is at 0. Considering his talent boosts item drops, improving luck is a good idea. In his past life, he was so weak he had to put everything into strength and HP, which ultimately didn't do him much. Now, he decides to test the new level 10 ability he unlocked. He fires an attack at the cobra's corpse and is impressed by the impact it causes. As he places points into luck, a purple light suddenly rises from the body. He immediately recognizes this is the sign the legendary drop. It's an escape sand scale that transforms him into a rolling ball to move through sand. The downside? It only works in desert environments. Why is this considered legendary, he mutters. Still, since it dropped, he may as well use it. He also eclipsed the silver scale armor from the snake boss. At this moment, he's confident he must be a highest level player on the server. Then the entire pillar lights up, and he wonders why nothing is happening. As soon as he thinks that the ground starts to shake, the pillar in front of him splits open, revealing a hidden passage. Approaching the newly formed staircase, he knows the true reward lies within. It's the perfect chance to test his new gear and abilities. But just then, he hears someone calling, "Brother." He immediately recognizes the voice of Xiao Tom. Outside the game, the girl says it's time to eat. She's making fried rice his favorite. Apparently, his headset has some augmented reality because he can still hear her while playing. He tells her to leave before she gets hurt. The system asks if he wants to log out. He refuses, saying he can't leave when he's just about to get the reward. Looking up, he tells his sister to stop interrupting him. He's in the middle of a match. She pouts, saying he's been playing for 8 hours straight without a break. He tells her to behave and stop distracting him. Annoyed, she leaves, saying she doesn't care about him anymore. As she walks off, she wonders how she can make him feel better. Inside the game, Shen Qing apologizes quietly to her. But for now, this is necessary. He has to get stronger to change her future. He strides toward the portal, declaring it's time to unlock a new class. A blue glow shines in his face, and when he opens his eyes, he's in a cave. The sister warns him that this is an extremely dangerous area and advises caution. Shen Qing immediately realizes this must be the boss room. Suddenly, a creature begins to rise before him. He's startled to see such a monstrosity here. It's a gold-ranked boss, the Desert King. It has 200 attack and 6,000 HP. Shen Qing is stunned by its sheer resilience and quickly activates weakness detection. However, the ability fails to identify any weak points. Before he can process this, the boss is already attacking. He dodges, but the impact throws him into the cave wall, dealing 100 damage. He's shocked. The attack wasn't even direct, yet he suffered so much damage. It's no wonder this is a gold-ranked boss. Simply dodging its stomps won't be enough. He fires his first arrow, but sees it only deals 1 damage. This happens because the boss's defense is so high that it nullifies most of his attack power. The boss attacks again, but this time, instead of jumping, Shen Qing uses his speed to gain distance. Before he can create enough space, another attack is already incoming. No, he can't dodge in time, he leaps into the air, clinging to the boss's arm. The monster thrashes, shaking him violently before hurling him into the air. While airborne, Shen Qing spots an opening. He prepares his new 7 arrow rain skill and fires at the boss. Each arrow deals 1% of the boss's max HP and ignores defense. In one volley, he reduces the HP from 6,000 to 5,100. However, the boss retaliates. Though he dodges, the impact damages enough to shatter his armor. Realizing this isn't sustainable, Shen Qing changes his strategy. He begins climbing up the boss's arm toward its head. From above, he tries to unleash another 7 arrow rain. Nothing happens. He's out of mana. Though the skill is powerful, it consumes too much energy. At his current rate, it will take 4 minutes to recover enough mana to use it again. The boss suddenly leaps toward the ceiling, preparing to crush him. Forced to retreat, Shen Qing drops to the ground as the boss destroys everything. Just then, a purple glow appears in the boss's eyes. The system announces that a weakness has been detected and marked. Looking closer, Shen Qing sees the marker indicating the abdomen. Now it makes sense why weakness detection didn't work before. The only weak point is located beneath its belly. The system warns that the boss is about to unleash its ultimate skill. The boss's ultimate skill would deal 100 damage per second and restrict his movements for 60 seconds. Shen Qing panics at the devastating effect as several tornadoes appear around him. He wonders why a beginner zone boss has such overpowered abilities. Not only is the damage incredibly high, but it lasts an absurd amount of time. The pressure is so intense he can't move his legs. One touch from the magic, and he loses 100 HP, quickly realizing he won't last long. Within seconds, he's already down by 400 HP, and there's no way to counterattack since the boss is still stuck on the ceiling. Desperately, he tries to find the solution. Unable to avoid the tornadoes, he risks firing another arrow, dealing 260 damage. Cursing the monster for being too comfortable, he sees the boss glaring at him as the tornadoes close in. He continues losing health until finally everything stops. It looks like he's disappeared, but in truth, he used the sand escape skill to burrow underground. The moment the boss drops its guard, Shen Qing reemerges, landing an arrow right in its abdomen. The The boss immediately restarts the tornadoes, but Shen King has already found his solution. He activates the sand escape again and reappears on the other side, unleashing another barrage of arrows that deals 300 damage. Realizing it can't keep up, the boss descends back to the ground, attempting to strike him. But Shen King simply dives underground again, reappearing from the other side and waving sarcastically. The boss attacks again, but now Shen King is confident. This explains why this ability is considered legendary, he thinks. It barely uses energy and has no cooldown. Suddenly, the boss speaks, calling him an idiot. Shen King freezes in confusion. This monster can talk. 3 hours later, Shen King is down to 720 HP. The battle is far longer than he expected, but he has 7 arrow rain ready again. The boss is at 1160 HP, and Shen King declares it's time to end this. But to his surprise, the boss surrenders. The boss exposes its abdomen, grumbling that it's tired of a fight that's lasted hours and just wants it to end. Still wary, Shen King raises his bow, saying, "If that's the case, I'll finish this for you." He unleashes 7 arrow rain, and the boss's HP finally drops to 0. Because he defeated a monster several levels above him, his experience skyrockets and he jumps 3 levels to level 13. The system announces he qualifies for a class change and asks if he wants to proceed. After all that effort, of course, he accepts. A dark aura surrounds him as the elf spirit appears, transforming into something new. His class changes to Ghost Hunter. He gains more HP, attack power, and attribute bonuses. As a Ghost Hunter, each level now grants 7 points instead of 5. He also receives 2 new abilities. A 30-second summon that creates a ghost to fight alongside him. A Bear Trap, which deals double damage when triggered. Though the abilities seem basic, they perfectly suit his playstyle. Shen King is particularly excited to use his Evolve Anything skill on his new class, but the cooldown is still 5 hours. At least his passive evolution skill has already collected the boss's drops. Spending points on Lux seems to have paid off. Checking his inventory, he finds 43 gold coins, a fortune for a beginner. A piercing bow, which reduces enemy defense with each attack, stacking up to 5 times. A universal glove that grants plus 7 agility. A golden greatsword that boosts attack by 30%. A valuable item he can't use but will sell for a high price. A healing necklace that regenerates HP outside combat. With 21 new points, he puts them all into agility. Checking his status window, he's thrilled to see how much he's progressed. But before he can continue, the system pops up. You've been in the game for 15 hours. You will now be forcibly logged out. Before he can argue, the system kicks him out. He wakes up back in the hospital pod, frustrated that a game for adults has an anti-addiction system. Still, it's fair. Everyone will have to follow the same rules. For now, things are progressing well, and it won't be long before he begins his revenge against Xiao Tankai. He heads to his sister, who's sleeping in the hospital room, clearly exhausted from watching over him. The smell of food hits him, and he recalls she made egg fried rice earlier. Shen King knows his sister grew up pampered and never had to do anything. Just having her here, constantly supporting him, is already a massive effort. As he takes a bite, though, his expression darkens. It's terrible. It tastes like she poured an entire jar of salt into it. Suddenly, she wakes up and happily says, "You finally stopped playing for a bit." He awkwardly apologizes for waking her up. Excited, she asks how the food tastes. Struggling to hold back tears, he says, "It's incredible. The fresh ingredients really shine through. It's delicious." Beaming, she insists he eat everything since he must be starving after playing all day. Shen King hesitates, staring at the steaming bowl that practically radiates evil. But what won't he do to make his sister happy? The next morning, he wakes up devastated. Someone approaches his bed and asks, "How are you feeling today, sir?" Out of nowhere, this lady comes ready to play the game. The doctor suddenly explains that he had diarrhea and vomiting, which had everyone a panic. The sly doctor thinks to herself that despite not having legs, Shen King is still handsome and rich. If she can win him over, she'd live a life of luxury. Shen King says he's feeling fine, blaming it on a side effect of playing too many games. With an unnervingly sweet smile, the doctor says that if he ever needs anything at all, he just has to call her. She assures him that she'll make him feel better no matter what. Shen King, Madame Yuz, simply asks her to push his wheelchair over to his gaming station. The doctor blinks, confused, wondering if her charms really didn't work. Does this guy actually care more about his little game? Once he's set up, she questions whether maybe she messed up her makeup today. But Shen King ignores her entirely and logs back into the game. The character appears, and when he opens his eyes, he's back in the chaos. It's only the second day of the game, but there are already 300,000 players. Shen King has that ultra-expensive gaming station, but the game is also accessible through cheaper VR devices. That's why, in less than a month, the game will surpass 100 million players. At the moment, he's nearly unequipped, but at least his new bow is in hand. His goal for the day is to obtain high-quality gear, and that will only be possible if he fights level 20 bosses. He enters the shop, and his shopkeeper immediately notices something unusual, a silver armor, something he's never seen before. The man asks what Shen King wants, and our protagonist humbly says that everything there is just bronze junk. Turning to the shopkeeper, he says he wants the shop's treasures. The vendor tries to explain that what's displayed in front of him is all they have for sale. They don't deal in treasures here, even if they did. Shen Qing wouldn't have the money to pay for them. But that's when our boy pulls out crystal coins and asks what the man thinks of these. The shopkeeper's attitude changes immediately. He gains 70-figure ability and exclaims that he hadn't realized Shen Qing was such an impressive person. He stretches out his hand and a golden light blinds everyone in the shop. With that, the so-called treasures appear, and the man admits those items weren't supposed to be sold for another 30 days. However, Shen Qing doesn't look too impressed and says that everything there is still silver grade. That is, until something catches his eye. He calls for the shopkeeper and says he wants to buy that mask. The man praises his keen eye, explaining that the mask is the only gold item in the game so far. Since Shen Qing brought him such a valuable crystal coin, he'll sell it for just 150,000 gold coins. Shen Qing immediately deposits the money and hands it over. The shopkeeper is stunned, confused, as Shen Qing just spent what amounts to an entire yearly salary for someone well off. But our boy doesn't care. Shen Qing simply says he'll take the item, and his shopkeeper mutters that a VIP customer can do whatever they please. Outside the shop, Shen Qing comments that spending 200,000 for such an advantage isn't expensive at all. He equips the mask and activates its effects immediately. It not only boosts a good amount of attributes, but also inflicts terror status on monsters and players of lower levels. Walking around, everyone can't help but stare at his mask, shocked at how insane it looks for the start of the game. A player wearing a hat claims it's impossible for that to be a gold item unless Shen Qing is using hacks. Suddenly, someone puts a hand on his shoulder and tells him to wait a minute. Shen Qing turns around and asks what the guy wants. A square-jawed man says Shen Qing's items look nice, and he should lend them to his friends. Shen Qing asks what he's talking about, and the group of players starts laughing. Then his expression darkens, and he demands to know why he should do such a thing. The man claims that the only way to get such an item so early in the game is by hacking. If Shen Qing doesn't hand over the items, they'll report him and ensure he loses everything. Shen Qing laughs, asking if they're really trying to rob him. The commotion attracts a crowd, and suddenly a lot of people start gathering around. Seeing this, the group decides to seize the opportunity. One of them raises his arm and shouts that they should teach this cheating trash a lesson. The crowd joins in, chanting the same thing. The square-jawed man warns Shen Qing that if he knows what's good for him, he better hand over the items. If not, they'll kill him repeatedly every time he responds. The protagonist simply comments that jealous people are the same everywhere. They can't stand seeing someone a little better than them. He glances at their levels and notices none of them are above level 5, so he taunts them, telling the 3 of them to come at him all at once. The players don't hesitate and immediately jump toward him. Shen Qing sees this as the perfect chance to activate the mask's effect. A giant tiger materializes around him, inflicting terror status on all 3 attackers, who collapse to the ground. The fear is so intense that one of the knights even starts coughing up blood. The onlookers don't understand what just happened. Shen Qing smirks and asks them about that respawn camping nonsense. He introduces himself saying, "My name is Cao Hai Wang, and you're welcome to come kill me whenever you like." Surprisingly humble, he walks away without finishing off the 3 players. This kid's actually a good guy. However, at that moment, people decide to check the ranking because they feel like they've heard that name before. Of course, our boy is ranked number 1 already at level 13, while the next closest player is only level 8. Everyone immediately thinks, good thing we didn't get involved in that. The square-jawed man collapses to the ground, realizing he's been humiliated and there's nothing he can do about it. He mutters to himself that he had the bad luck to provoke the number 1 player. Sometime later, Shen Qing approaches a few cabins in the forest. However, before continuing his hunting, there's something else he needs to do. He finds an NPC girl collapsed on the ground. He approaches her, calling her little girl, asking if she knows where Levu went. She immediately responds, saying she's not a little girl since he's not much older than her, so he should stop calling her that. From her attitude, Shen Qing is certain that he's talking to the right person. He asks if she's Linger, Lady Gu's daughter. The girl, confused, demands to know how he knows her name. However, this psycho calmly says that her mother promised she'd marry him in 5 years. Linger is utterly bewildered and runs off, yelling about why her mother would sell her off like that. At that moment, Lei Hu appears, asking what happened. Her daughter tearfully accuses her of selling her off to hunt with that boy. Shen Qing steps in, cheerfully greeting Lady Gu, who looks startled to see him. "You actually passed the test?" she exclaims. Shen Qing smirks and says he promised that as soon as he passed, he'd come find them. He's a man of his word. Lady Hu asks what he wants, warning him that if he tries anything inappropriate, she'll disappear immediately. Shen Qing scratches his head, surprised to learn that NPCs can disappear. Apparently, he's the first player to push things this far. He assures her that it's nothing inappropriate. All he wants is the map to a mid-level dungeon. Linger butts in, saying they don't have anything like that. Shen Qing shrugs and says that if that's the case, they'll have to show her something impressive. He moves to throw a punch, and Lady Bu instinctively backs away. However, when she opens her eyes, Shen Qing is holding up a massive crystal. "Don't just stand there. Take the crystal," he says. It's payment for access to the secret dungeon. Both Lady Gu and Linger stare at the crystal, hearts practically in their eyes, and his favorability increases by 50 points. Linger, practically drooling, asks if it's really for the big one. However, the mischievous daughter grabs it first, gushing about how beautiful it is, and thanking him as big brother. Lady Gu chases after her, scolding her that she's too young to need something like that. The two start bickering, with Linger declaring that this must be a wedding gift for their marriage in 5 years. Shen King has no idea what these crazy women are talking about and demands the mid-level dungeon map. Lady Gu sighs and agrees, but warns him that the map wasn't supposed to be available for another 20 years. However, she adds, since you offered such a generous payment, I'll make an exception. She explains that the village chief authorized the release of the map only to those who accept difficult challenges. Suddenly, Linger chimes in, saying she knows where the village chief's house is and will take Shen King there. Elsewhere, a woman is lounging, sighing about how comfortable it is. This woman is the village chief, and clearly a dangerous character. She's a feline-like beauty with sharp eyes and an unsettling aura. Suddenly, she notices something approaching. It's Linger, who crashes into her lap, saying someone's looking for her. The village chief, now drooling for some reason, asks who this person is. Out of nowhere, Shen King appears, say before her and getting straight to the point. He says he wants the mid-level dungeon map. The village chief tells him to wake up and face reality. At level 13, he doesn't stand a chance. He should come back at level 20. But how many of these crystals does this guy even have? Without hesitation, Shen King tosses another crystal her way. The chief looks at it, her expression softening, and asks if he's really trying to buy her off. Don't you know who I am? I'm the village chief. She strikes a dramatic JoJo pose and declares that she's a righteous person, which is why she holds this position. So righteous, in fact, that she'll accept the crystal because Shen King is such a good person. Linger chimes in, saying that if the chief is really so kind, she should give the crystal back to Big Brother. Grabbing the crystal, she throws it back to Shen King. Shen King, amused, pockets the crystal and again demands the mid-level map. The village chief insists that the dungeon is suicide for anyone below level 20. For the sake of player experience, she can't hand it over to him. Shen King then asks what happens if he proves his strength. The chief seems unimpressed and questions whether he really wants this that badly. Standing up, she says they'll make a deal. If he can prove his strength, the map will be his. How do I prove it? Shen King asks. The chief explains that every year the village is attacked by packs of wolves. Players usually help defend the village, but no one has ever managed to resolve the problem because no one can kill the White Wolf King. If you kill it and bring me its item, then we'll talk, she says. The system offers the quest, warning that the difficulty is hard. Of course, Shen King accepts immediately. He stands up, telling her to have the map ready because he'll be back soon. Suddenly, Linger grabs his hand and insists she's coming with him. She says she can protect him. However, Shen King just tells her to stop fooling around and go back to her mother. But the girl insists, saying she wants to protect the village and kill the White Wolf King. Shen King turns to the village chief and asks if she's going to control this crazy girl or not. Suddenly, the system updates, announcing that the mission now has an additional condition. You must protect Linger. He can't believe this brat just altered his mission. She clings to him, saying she won't let go, and he asks if she's a monkey by any chance. Suddenly, she starts kicking and flailing like a child, whining that she doesn't like adventures alone. Since he has to protect her for the mission, he reluctantly agrees. Sometime later, they're walking through the forest. Linger hides behind him, saying the place feels scary. Suddenly, they hear noises coming from behind a bush. Shen King says he'll check it out while Linger trembles in fear. A group of adventurers is cutting the heads off wolves. Shen King approaches and asks for direction to the wolf den. The group consists of players between level 5 and 7, and their leader refuses to answer, saying they're hunting here and won't let anyone else in. Confused, Shen King asks what they're talking about. The leader points to a red snake tattoo on his arm and asks if he's never heard of the strongest guild at the moment. The translation seems off because the guy then calls his guild the Green Snake. Shen King looks as confused as we are. Another player steps forward and claims that even the Buffalo area belongs to them. If Shen King wants to farm in any of these places, he'll have to pay a fee or go back to killing chickens. Then the guy points at Linger and asks if she's an NPC with a secret quest. Shen King refuses to answer and mocks their inefficient leveling methods. Another player retorts that Shen King is an idiot for not realizing that wolves are weak but extremely safe, making it possible to hunt them all day. Meanwhile, Linger keeps hiding behind Shen King's cloak. Suddenly, she points at something and says there's something approaching. Shen King looks up to see a dark aura emerging behind the group. Realizing the danger, he grabs Linger and jumps away to safety. They land on a tree branch while the group laughs, mocking him for running away. Good. One sneers, "It's better for a weakling like you to flee since you have no chance here." Shen King just thinks about how stupid they are for not noticing the presence nearby. Suddenly, a liquid drips onto Linger's head. When she looks up, she sees a massive wolf with its mouth wide open and screams in terror. Before she can react, the wolf lunges, and she's gone in an instant. The group turns around to see only the girl's feet left behind. Panicking, the leader shouts for everyone to run, but the wolf won't let them escape so easily. In an instant, the creature disappears and reappears on one player's back. Chaos erupts as wolves attack from all sides, and the group starts dying one by one. The White Wolf King emerges, level 20 with 4,000 HP. Qing immediately notices that the boss has several tricks up its sleeve. He draws an arrow to test the wolf's speed, but Linger suddenly stops him. "What's wrong?" he asks. Linger explains that he can't fight it now. The wolf seems to sense something and sprints off into the distance. King jumps down with Linger and Tao, saying he'll chase it. But once again, she insists he stay put. She explains that the boss appeared because the group killed too many wolves in the area. If he attracts his attention in this state, he'll definitely die. He needs to be fully prepared first. King finds this strange but decides to trust her. Suddenly, Linger pulls out a map and explains that it's an automatic path to the den. "Why didn't you show this earlier?" King asks. She grins and says, "You must be starting to like having me on your team." A system message then pops up about an evolution. Linger admires the glove in King's inventory, calling it beautiful, and asks what it is. King says it's something incredible, and that she'll have to be impressed for a while. He tries to upgrade his elven bloodline, but the system rejects it, saying the bloodline has already been fully evolved. "Well, it was worth a try," he mutters, blushing slightly in embarrassment. Since that auction failed, he decides to evolve his ghost skill instead. Extending his arm, he activates it for the first time. A strange blue energy begins to condense behind him. Suddenly, a buff version of himself made entirely of water appears and drops to the ground. To test it, he orders the clone to use the 7-arrow ring skill. The clone starts preparing the attack and Shen quickly tells it to wait, wanting to confirm that this is even possible. Seeing the clone capable of using his abilities, King realizes how useful the skill is. Then he gets a wild idea. He orders the clone to activate the evolved skill. To his surprise, the clone actually does it, and a notification pops up. However, instead of evolving King's abilities, it evolves the ghost skill itself. King is utterly shocked, staring at the message in disbelief. "It worked," he mutters. Like us, King can't believe that actually succeeded. The NPC asks if King is cheating, and he replies, "Of course not. Like a hacker could be as good as me." This boy is really full of himself. He then asks what his chances of winning are, and the NPC estimates 20%. Hearing this, King decides it's time to increase that number and evolves the 7 arrows ability. The evolution reduces the mana cost while boosting the damage. But to his surprise, the ability actually evolves into 8 arrows. The NPC then updates her estimate, saying his chances are now 34%. This evolution of the ghost ability also allows him to summon an additional clone. He immediately summons another clone and tries to activate evolution again. However, the ability shares its cooldown, so it's not as easy as he thought. King realizes that because he activated evolution before summoning the clone was summoned with the cooldown active. He decides that next time he'll need to spend everything before using it. Turning to the NPC, he says, "Let's go. Me need to come up with a plan to boost my chances of winning." She asks where they're going and he grins, saying it's a surprise, though it seems their destination is somewhere underwater. A giant creature lunges at a fish, but an arrow pierces its head. King obtains crocodile meat, which boosts movement speed by 30% and agility by 10% for 30 seconds. He summons his ghost clone to help with hunting, thinking how efficient this method is. An hour passes, and it seems Linger ate the meat along with him. This increases his favorability with her because the fish was of such high quality. In addition, they also obtain advanced carp meat. King explains that he now has 3 clones underwater, gathering as many potions as possible for the upcoming fight against the White Wolf King. Linger considers this and estimates his chances are now around 40%. King stands up, saying, "That's enough. It's time to take down that monster." Linger insists on coming along, but they're unaware that a suspicious clan is watching them from afar. A while later, they arrive at the wolf's cave. King immediately summons his clones and uses them to set death traps, a skill that hasn't even been explained yet. With 3 clones plus himself, there are 4 in total. He waits for the cooldown to reset and starts placing even more traps. In just a few seconds, the ground is littered with a dozen traps. Linger says he's overdoing it, and that his chances of victory aren't increasing with this strategy. King explains that his goal is simply to limit the wolf's movements. She insists that his chances still haven't reached even 50%. He smirks and tells her she doesn't know everything. Just watch. I'll handle it. He orders her to hide behind a tree and not come out no matter what happens. Standing at the cave entrance, King shouts for the boss. The obedient White Wolf King immediately emerges and charges toward him. King confidently mutters that the wolf is ready to fall into his trap. However, the wolf suddenly stops, sniffs the air, and stares at him for a moment before turning back toward the cave. Now he realizes the boss is smarter than he expected. He continues shouting, calling the wolf a coward to lure out while Linger watches from afar. As she observes, wanting to see what he can do, someone sneaks up behind her and covers her mouth. Suddenly, Miss System notifies King that a trap has been triggered. He's confused because the wolf hadn't passed through the entrance yet. Looking behind him, he remembers that he set a few traps at the rear earlier. Turning around, he sees a group of players holding Linger hostage. She kicks and yells for them to let her go. 2 of the players complain about the traps and tell their leader to destroy them quickly. At that moment, King appears and demands that they let her go. Linder shouts for them to release her or else her future husband will beat them up. The leader pauses, suddenly suspicious, and asks how old the girl is. Shen Chen can't believe this brat is giving him such a creepy reputation. Linger continues screaming for her husband to save her, leaving Shen Kame completely confused. Even the villains start laughing, calling Shen Kame the most disgusting guy in the game. The leader asks Shen Cheng if he knows this region belongs to their team. Shen King shrugs, saying he heard the area belonged to the Green Snake Guild. The leader asks if he's crazy for knowing that and still daring to come here. He then accuses Shen King of being involved in an ambush against his guild members earlier. Stepping closer, he demands to know if Shen King had something to do with it. Shen King denies it, telling them to just wait for the keymates to respond and ask him. The leader smirks and says he doesn't believe a coward like Shen King could defeat his guild members. Shen King tries to avoid conflict, knowing that if Linger dies, his mission will fail. The leader presses him, asking what he's doing here. Shen King casually replies that he's just wandering around, but the leader sneers, asking if Shen King thinks he's stupid. He knows the strongest creature in this area resides nearby, and all its rewards belong to his guild. Shen Ting starts wondering if it wouldn't be easier to just beat these guys up. Suddenly, he has a better idea and makes a proposal. If you let Linger go, he says, I'll show you what a boss is. The leader scoffs, asking who Shen King thinks he is to try negotiating with them. At that moment, a girl suddenly steps forward and introduces the leader as Yang Cheng, the third young master. She warns Shen Cheng that Yang Cheng is ranked 27th strongest in the game and that he should show some respect. Shen King suddenly remembers that his family owns 40% of the shares in Yang Cheng's family company. Even Yang Cheng's father is polite to him because of it. With this in mind, Shen King smirks and tells Yang Cheng that he's heard of him before. Yang Cheng, puffing his chest, says that if that's the case, Shen King should hand over all his money before he gets punished. However, Shen King laughs and responds that he's not interested in escalating the situation. He raises his arm, adding, "What it seems like you all are going too far." Suddenly, a roar echoes from inside the cave. Everyone immediately realizes the boss is inside. Yang Sheng cheers, declaring that he and his elite team will be the first to hunt the creature. Excited, the entire group rushes toward the cave. The guy holding Linger drops her into Shen King's arms, saying they have bigger things to do now, but they'll settle things with him later. However, both Shen King and Linger already know these guys don't stand a chance. Not only do they have no idea how the boss works, but they're also completely unprepared. Worst of all, they're stepping right into the trap sequence that Shen King had laid earlier. Within a second, the entire team is caught in the traps. The clueless leader is standing there staring at the boss. As he prepares for the attack, the guy still has no idea what he's up against. The mage behind him says the weak point has been detected, but it's a level 20 creature. Yan Shang tells everyone not to panic because he's there, and he seemed confident because of a talent he had bought for the giant berserker. His clothes tear and the guy bulks up. A kind of energy clone emerges from his body and starts to grow. The giant berserker's passive increased his attack power by 150%. This was a skill the protagonist had never even heard of. From the ground, Linger asks if he's really going to abandon the mission, but he says not to rush and let the guys mess up a little first. Meanwhile, Yang Cheng's friends are just wishing him good luck. He was confident, thinking that no matter how big the boss was, with the talent he was using, there was no way he could lose. That's because it was impossible for him to die in one hit, and he had the support of the party's healers. He then charges toward the boss to deliver the first strike, but the boss suddenly lunges forward and pierces his chest with an attack. Shen Kim was impressed that the poor guy didn't last even one hit. With an analysis, he quickly sees that the monster's attack dealt 800 damage with his 0.7-second reaction time. Meanwhile, the clueless Yang Cheng is left with 80 HP. The poor guy is thrown like trash and crashes into the ground, exploding on impact. Seeing this, the rest of his group starts running away in a panic, while the protagonist just watches them flee, thinking to himself that they really are a bunch of useless fools. Suddenly, the boss roars upward, and some wolves emerge from the cave. The fleeing party members quickly realize they're being chased. The clueless girl wants to save the boss, but the guy says it's madness since he doesn't stand a chance against that monster. She hesitates, wanting to go back, but the guy runs ahead, saying she can stay behind if she wants. He turns back and apologizes to the boss, but that's when he notices someone heading toward the monster and wonders who the lunatic is. It's Shen Kink, who says the boss is smarter than he thought, using the traps he himself had set to get revenge on these guys. But now his opponent was him. Lying on the ground, Yang Sheng thinks the protagonist has gone mad for facing that creature head-on. He obviously doesn't want to get hit again, so he just pretends to be dead. Meanwhile, the monster is just staring the protagonist. Suddenly, he's attacked by wolves from all directions. Like he lightly taps his ear, saying they're just wolves. Oh, he activated the mask, a skiti guy. He says he's the tiger. The tiger is an albino electric creature, appearing above the boy and shoving the wolves away. Even the boss looks clueless, confused about what just happened. Then he senses something. It's our boy already in the air shooting arrows at him. But the wolf is agile, dodging and closing in. Shen Qing immediately realizes this speed exceeds his precision. The boss approaches for an attack while he decides he has to give it his all. Blood splatters everywhere as Linger calls out for our boy. Man, it seems he was also pierced through the chest by the boss. He's in serious trouble. Our boy's shield is gone, along with 500 HP. And the monster is standing there smiling, but the psycho with a hole in his chest is smiling too. He asked the boss if he really thought he couldn't dodge that. And of course, the reason he let the boss land the hit was to make sure he couldn't miss his counterattack. With that, some of his clones launch a 7-arrow attack. The monster throws itself to the ground trying to dodge. Not sure if it hit, but arrows are scattered everywhere. Kneeling, our boy taunts the monster and asks if he's enjoying this. Man, a few arrows hit and the guy lost 1,220 HP. He even warns the boss that the area is full of traps, so there's no way he can escape. He bites into some meat, saying, "Let's see who can last longer now." With 2 pieces of crocodile meat, he recovers another 400 HP. The boss watches this, stares at him, and then vanishes in front of him. Shen Qing wonders if it's some kind of invisibility skill, but the monster is suddenly behind him. Before he can react, the poor guy gets punched again and loses another 400 HP. Now to make sense, this was the technique a monster used to kill this guy's team. The problem is that as soon as he looks, the boss seems to disappear again. In a second, something reforms behind him. The boy is getting beaten up like a fight from Dragon Ball Z. He's getting punched here, punched there, thrown this way, and flying that way. The poor guy crashes to the ground, exhausted, with 1,600 HP left. He realizes the boss is attacking so quickly to prevent him from recovering. And once again, the monster is coming up from behind to grab him. But suddenly, something grabs the monster's arm. Finally, and it stepped into one of the 2 billion traps the boy had set up. With the monster immobilized, he announces that there's no chance of missing this time. He fires an arrow that, as we know, deals double damage, but it only did 196 damage. Man, time to buy a better bow, huh? The monster still has 2,300 HP. It breaks the chains and charges at him again. It deals 1,000 and another 800 damage to the chest. Our boy needs to dodge a bit more. But the boss looks confused because the lunatic keeps smiling every time he takes a hit to the chest. Turns out the boy knew these traps wouldn't stop the monster. That's why he decided to stay still and use his body again to keep the boss in place. Once more, he uses the skills of his clones which appear above the creature. The monster tries to throw him away, but the trap was already activated. While it's immobilized for a few seconds, the 7-arrow skill is used again. He prepares the attack and orders the creature to die. This move is called 21 consecutive attacks. I guess it's because 7 times 3 is 21. I'm pretty good, Manhwa. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, a group wonders if they should be hunting wolves. Suddenly, there's an explosion across the entire forest. One guy asks if someone is using an atomic bomb in the game, and a girl thinks it might be a hacker. Meanwhile, Linger is smiling, saying it's amazing. The bosses lie in a crater with 75 HP left. Once again, he eats some crocodile meat, while Linger tells him to finish it off already. Liu replies that there's no rush because he still has things to do. She looks at him confused, back with Yang Sheng, who's still pretending to be dead. Lying on the ground, he wonders why everything went silent after that explosion. He decides to play dead a little longer until he's sure no one is around. But suddenly, an arrow lands next to him. When he sees it's Shen Qing, he asks if he really killed the boss. Shen Qing replies that the monster is basically about to die. Yang Sheng kneels and begs for forgiveness, saying he couldn't recognize the boy's greatness. Our boy says he'll not only forgive him, but also give him a chance to earn the boss's experience. But for that, he needs to do something specific. It's a favor for the future, and when a time comes, he'll be notified. Aiming the arrow at his neck, he asks if he'll accept or not. Our boy knows this guy's family has some influence in the group, which could help him leave that company. If he can secure that favor, it'll at least make it harder for him to lose his position. That's because it'll take at least 6 months for all the game's attributes to fully integrate into reality. And in the meantime, he wants to progress peacefully. Shen Qing asks if he's going to get shot with the arrow as soon as he accepts. Our boy tells him to just say what he wants. He doesn't like negotiating with people without ambition because it's hard to tell why they want to stick around. Yang Sheng replies that since he understands so well, he won't hide it. He wants help leveling up and securing his position as leader of the Green Snake Gang. The protagonist laughs and prepares an attack. Golden energy begins to radiate from all sides, and the arrow is shot at the boss. The creature dies, and he says the deal is done. Apparently, he agreed to share the experience with the guy, who instantly gained 2 levels. Yang Sheng thanks him, saying he'll forever owe him a favor. But our boy just replies to stop calling him brother because they're not that close. He warns him that if he drags his name into anything, he'll wish he were dead. Yang Sheng swears he'd never do such a thing and promises to always be loyal to him. Our boy then calls for Linger and says it's time to leave. But before going, he tells Shen Qing that when the time comes, he'll be notified. Watching the two leave, Shen Qing heals himself, saying he'll make sure to repay that favor in the future. Shortly after, he's fuming at this damn NPC, who's talking about maybe accepting his proposal for marriage. He yells at her, saying she's not only an NPC made up of a bunch of files, but also a child. So she better stop talking nonsense and get out of his sight. But she just gets mad and bites him on the neck. He pulls her off, wondering who the hell designed this crazy character, and then tells her to buzz off because he wants to check the loot. One of the items he received was a pair of White Wolf pants. As long as his health was full, his movement speed was increased by 100%. As soon as he equips the item, he immediately feels like he has the speed to fly around. In addition, he received wolf claws, which were an assassin-class weapon. He also got a white wolf pelt, a rare item. He knows it's used to complete a mission, and seems to be really valuable. Along with all that, he gained the ability to summon wolf companions. For someone who plays solo, this was perfect, so he learns it right away. The rest of the loot included some gold, crystals, and consumables. Meanwhile, the dear Lady Gu wonders why they haven't returned yet. She complains that it's the village chief's fault for leaving a child with a guy. But then she notices something and, looking to the side, sees that the two have returned. Linger runs up and hugs his ham, saying she was protected by our boy. Shen King tosses the wolf pelt, saying here's what she asked for. The chief smiles and says she never thought he'd be capable. He's clearly not an ordinary person. She becomes flustered with a warm, awkward demeanor and says it's fine. She pulls out a scroll and explains that the area is for levels 20 to 40, so he would probably die there. But it's also a great opportunity since the area is free of other players, meaning he could farm alone. He simply grabs the scroll and tells her not to worry. Linger asks if he's leaving already. Harboy asks if she plans to keep following him. At that moment, her mother grabs her, telling him to stop talking to her daughter like that. Meanwhile, the girl protests, saying she wants to go with him. Lady Gu turns and tells him that since he has the map, he might as well leave already. He replies that he only got the map in exchange for an extremely rare item, so he feels like he's being cheated. The leader accuses him of trying to take advantage of her. Shen King says he knows people like her need a little pressure. He raises his finger, creating a golden light, and asks if this is really the reward he deserves. She responds that he can keep the skill, and he thanks her, saying now it makes sense. It was an epic skill for a powerful attack. He could charge the attack for 7 seconds to deal maximum damage over a much greater range. He celebrates, saying he always knew she had treasure hidden away. The next scene shows him firing a golden arrow, ripping through half the sea. He's impressed at how much farther his abilities can now reach. He then thanks the chief and tells Linger he's leaving. He gives her a small smile and tells her to grow up. He activates his speed boost and runs off. The poor girl is left shouting that he has no heart. In the next scene, he's standing in front of a sea called the suburb. He pulls out the scroll and something appears on the ground. Out of nowhere, an entire city forms. It turns out the scroll is powerful. He recognizes this city as Roy and knows there's a lot of good stuff here. In his previous life, he started late and spent a lot of time killing cows. By the time he reached this city, there were no good quests or items left. But the most important thing is that when you reach level 40, this city gives you a mission to bring some attributes back to the real world. Once that happens, Taienkai will suffer twice as much pain as he did. But before heading there, it's time to clean out his inventory. He heads to the auction house where several bunny-eared attendants are working hard. Walking around, he notices the game is getting as crowded as in his past life. A healthy bunny girl approaches and asks if he's there to auction something. She shows him to a table and explains they'll take 10% of the value of everything he sells. She asks if he wants his name on the items he auctions, but he says no. He'd rather stay anonymous. As he approaches the stage, someone announces that item 188 has arrived. Apparently, a girl is stepping onto the stage. Judging by the guy's reactions, she's quite the spectacle. As expected, she's someone who wouldn't sink even if she tried. A natural floater. The guy on stage jokes that something huge is at stake. The auctioneer reveals it's a bronze ring that adds 10 luck. It also gives a 5% drop rate boost and increases earned money by 5%. The crowd seems unimpressed, while a woman scolds a guy for staring at the girl. Shen King, however, knows this item can come in gold or diamond rarity, making it extremely valuable. People start bidding while Shen King thinks it'd be perfect to enhance the item's quality. The auctioneer asks if anyone will bid more than 30, and our boy raises his hand, offering 1 gold coin. The crowd is confused, wondering why he'd offer so much for a bronze item. But someone next to him bids 10 gold coins. Chaos ensues as everyone starts thinking this is madness. The clueless bidder smirks at our boy. Shen King finds it odd that the guy seems to know the item's value. But for him, it'd be too perfect for his skill, so he raises the bid to 30 gold coins. The other guy didn't see that coming. He musters his courage and raises it to 50 gold coins. The auctioneer jokes about how demanding his clients are. The guy in the hat tells our boy to give up because when it comes to money, he never loses. But that's when Shen King raises his hand again and the guy is stunned. He sees that Shen King has bid 100 gold coins. The place falls silent. The auctioneer declares it impossible for anyone to raise the bid further. He counts down. Once, twice, and on the third, the item is sold. The hammer strikes and our boy acquires the Ring of Greed. Now he just has to wait 8 hours to use the evolution skill, ensuring many more items in the future. The man in the hat comments that our boy is quite bold, but he warns him to remember that he won't forget this. Finally, he leaves, Meanwhile, Shen King wonders if this guy might want revenge. That's when someone slaps his face and calls him handsome. It's the walking balloon, saying that tonight he belongs to Hila. Whether he's too innocent or just Sigma, he asks what that means. The human floaty says that if he spent so much on the ring, it must mean he wants Hela as a gift too. Apparently, this is a feature of the auction he wasn't aware of. She places her hand on his chest and tells him not to worry. Even though it's just an in-game experience, it'll still be better than reality. Here, they wouldn't need to worry about anything. Shen King begins to wonder if the man in the hat actually knew nothing about the ring and was just after this intense event. He pushes Hela away and says that while her physique isn't bad, she can follow him later. She thanks him and says she's looking forward to the experience. But her expression changes when a man appears behind our boy calling out to him. The man says Shen King has some good items and asks if he wants to take a look. Shen King turns and tells him to show them. The man thinks that since Shen King was foolish enough to spend 100 gold coins on a trash item, he'll surely be easy to profit from. Of course, the man presents a pile of terrible bronze items. Shen King wonders how the man has the nerve to offer such garbage. The man asks which ones he'll take, and Shen King simply replies, none of them. They're all trash. The vendor gets angry, saying Shen King has no eye for quality. He grabs him by the collar, saying that it looks like him to teach him a lesson. Either he buys something, or he'll take a beating. But his expression changes when Shen King asks if he's really that eager to die. That's when the walking balloon intervenes, telling the man to leave and warning him that security is watching. She reminds him that dealing inside the auction is against the rules. The security team looks like a Megazord on steroids. The man runs off immediately, calling them all idiots. Shen King didn't kill him knowing it would get him banned from the auction. He then turns to the walking balloon and asks if, now that he bought the ring, she'll do whatever he wants. She tells him not to be so direct, but in a way, he just has to ask. He tells her to hand him the money he'll earn from auctioning off weapons, estimating the total should come to at least 800 gold coins. Confused, she asks if he just wants her to spend the night at the auction. He clarifies, saying no, he actually wants her to use her looks to sell the items at a higher price so he can make more profit. She's shocked, unable to believe he's asking her to stay stuck there. But when he promises to double her cut, she asks when they'll meet again. He simply turns his back and tells her that when the time comes, he'll find her. The girl blushes, thinking he's handsome, rich, and confident. Walking through the streets, he knows buying that ring was perfect, as items in the city of Roy are rare and hard to obtain. The final step before heading there is to upgrade his equipment. He enters his shop and finds a craftsman muttering to himself, wondering what to do. Apparently, the man lost his hammer and can't function without it. Shen King pulls out the hammer and asks if he's looking for this. The man is stunned, asking how Shen King found it and knew he needed it. But he raises it to the sky, grateful, saying it's exactly what he needed. Obviously, this was a secret quest, and the man asks what Shen King wants to upgrade since he'll do it for free. This is a hidden event where returning the hammer grants one free upgrade on any item. Shen King hands over his bow, asking to level it up to the max. This method is much more efficient than grinding monsters. Apparently, the item is upgraded to its maximum level, not its maximum rarity. The cracksman agrees, and 20 minutes later, the upgrade is complete. Yang Cheng thanks him and asks to inspect it. The craftsman says the bow is now level 10 and would cost 20 gold coins. Shen Chen replies that level 10 is fine, as he'll soon buy a better one anyway. The next moment, we're in the forest. The city of Roy has creatures up to level 60, making it quite dangerous. For safety, he decides to wait for the cooldown on his evolution skill before heading there. What he doesn't know is that someone is watching him from the bushes. An arrow suddenly flies toward him, and he seems to sense something. He turns, and the arrow grazes his face. He realizes it was a close call. It almost hit his head. The man in the shadows comments that Shen King is truly remarkable. Of course, it's the man in the hat who admits he didn't expect Shen King to dodge that. Shen King tells him it's a misunderstanding. He only wanted the item. But the man responds that it's too late for that now. Shen King demands to know what he's doing here. The man whistles, and an entire team emerges from the shadows. Shen King notices something unusual. They captured the walking balloon. He asks why they'd done this since she still had work to do for him. The man in the hat says that if Shen King spent 100 gold coins, he must have plenty more to share with his friends. The girl apologizes, explaining that everything was stolen by these men. The old man mocks him, saying he was foolish to think that just because he didn't buy anything, they wouldn't take his money. He kicks the elf girl, calling her a piece of trash for ruining his plans. Then he looks at Shen King and says they finally meet again. Shen King calmly replies that he can tolerate people stealing from him, but you won't allow anyone to mistreat someone working for him. The group falls silent, staring at him. The man claims they're not really hitting her, just putting on a little show for him. Suddenly, he throws the girl to the ground and seems to attack her again. The girl cries out in pain, and it's clear Shen King didn't like that one bit. Electricity begins to crackle around him as the man looks to the side, confused. Shen King is preparing his new 7-second attack. He declares it's time for the trash to die, but the white-haired man charges forward, determined not to give him the chance to use that move. He jumps on the Shen King's back, but strangely, Shen King shifts as well and ends up behind him. An arrow pierces through the man like a rocket. The protagonist simply remarks that he's way too slow. Confused, the white-haired man turns to look back but collapses to the ground. The other two, now terrified, ask how he could do that to their companion, but Shen Qing just snaps his fingers and points at them. They look bewildered until suddenly his clones appear. Arrows come from both sides, slicing through them. Both of their bodies fall lifeless to the ground. The man in the hat starts clapping, saying he expected no less from someone as strong as Shen Qing. Shen Qing doesn't react. The man introduces himself as Shibuya, explaining that the ones who attacked Shen Qing were just disposable pawns. He also reveals that he used detection on Shen Qing and discovered that he's only level 15. Shen Qing dismissively tells him to just get to the point. Shibuya then asks if he's the #1 player, Kao Haiwan. Shen Qing confirms it. Immediately, Shibuya returns 70 fragments and the gold he stole. He steps closer, offering his hand, wanting to be friends. He proposes forming an alliance and creating a new gang. With their combined strength, he said, as they could dominate this world and have anyone they desired. Shen Qing simply replies that he's not interested in such things. Shibuya asks what he wants, and Shen Qing responds that it should be obvious. He wants revenge. Shibuya is startled and begins backing away, saying Shen Qing can contact him anytime if he changes his mind. But as he's about to leave, Shen Qing asks where he thinks he's going. An arrow flies past, tearing through Shibuya's cape, leaving him stumbling. With a like on this video that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers, activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.